Been in an antique store with your parents? They have all kinds of great old stuff to interest historians like us. Most of it's fun to look at, like this rocker. But look what I found. It's an old handbill printed in 1912. It says, "Let women vote." Was there really a time when women couldn't vote? I wonder if other groups were denied equal rights too. I'd like to investigate both of those questions today. Why didn't women have the right to vote? And how did Wisconsin women and other people in unfair situations work to make Wisconsin a place where everyone is equal? Let's investigate. I bought this handbill and had it framed for my office. At the top it says, "Suffrage for Women." I looked suffrage up in the encyclopedia. It means the right to vote. I also learned that there was a time in Wisconsin's history when people were arguing about whether women should have the right to vote. We need to find out how and when people worked for suffrage. Remember, history is about why and how things changed in the past. We know huge changes took place when Americans, called Yankees, gained control of this area from the American Indians and Métis people of mixed heritage. To understand how some of those changes affected women, we need to go back to the beginning. We know the Menominee people were among those living here before white explorers arrived. Let's talk with an expert. I met Bernadine Vijou at the American Intercultural Center in Green Bay. She told me that in many of the Indian nations living here before Europeans arrived, women helped make important decisions for the tribe. What kind of government did the Menominee people have before Europeans arrived?
They had a clan system, and each clan had certain responsibilities. And within the clans were chiefs and sub-chiefs, and these chiefs were picked by the elders. And the elders consulted with the women because the elders looked for men that were selfless and could get consensus from the tribe.
Menominee people worked and lived in large family groups. Mrs. Vijou also told me that most of the new Yankee settlers were farmers too. But the farms were home to just one family. The men farmed while the women cooked and cleaned. Although women's work was essential, white women did not have very many legal rights. The men had been taught that they were best able to think about important things like making laws, and that women's most important job was to raise children and take care of the home. They believed that white people were superior to others, and that males were superior to females. Those beliefs led politicians to shape the kind of place Wisconsin was going to be. They created a system of government that made sense to them, but was very different than the governments of the Menominee and other Indian people. That helps me understand why white women, Indian people, Métis people, and black people weren't always able to vote in Wisconsin. The President of the United States created the Wisconsin Territory in 1836 after the Black Hawk War. It included all of present Wisconsin, Iowa and Minnesota, and parts of North and South Dakota. The new leaders forced Wisconsin Indians to move to reservations and decided that only white men would be able to vote. That's a lot of power. I wonder how the new leaders made those changes. The Wisconsin Department of Tourism webpage has information about a historic site in Old Belmont that dates back to the territorial period. Let's go. This is the first territorial capital historic site in southwest Wisconsin near Belmont. The first legislature met in this room in 1836. The laws they made here were the first laws that affected everyone in the territory and were recognized by the United States government. One of the things they decided was to create a new capital in Madison. That same year, a census or population count was taken, but Indian people weren't counted. A territory needed 60,000 white residents before voters could decide to apply for statehood. Territorial leaders wanted to gain statehood so they could be represented in the national government and receive money for schools, roads, and canals. It took 10 years for the white population to reach 60,000. In 1846, Wisconsin voters approved the proposal for statehood. First, territorial leaders had to write a constitution, which is a set of laws to govern the people. They were deciding what this new state was going to be like. Maybe you've played a computer game where you have to make choices about a new city or town and seen that sometimes plans are successful and sometimes need to be changed over time. What rules would you make if you were creating a state?
I would like everyone to have a job opportunity.
I would like to have law enforcement and protection plan.
I would make better use of natural resources.
I would like all the communities to be united.
I would like a lot of parks for recreation.
I would make sure people had opportunities for a better future.
That's a lot of different ideas. Our early politicians had trouble deciding too. I just learned about a man named Morgan L. Martin, who was one of the territorial leaders. His house in Green Bay has been restored and is open for tours. Let's check it out. This is Hazelwood, home of the Martin family. Some historians believe the first Constitution was written right in this house. Mr. Martin's first draft said that married white women could control their own land, house, and bank account. But Wisconsin voters, who were all white men, didn't approve that Constitution. They also refused to give black men the right to vote. It took 2 years of discussion and debate for Wisconsin voters to approve a constitution. Wisconsin finally became a state. On May 29, 1848, James Polk, President of the United States, signed the papers which made Wisconsin the 30th state to enter the Union. But the new Constitution still did not give everyone in the state equal rights. Wisconsin's native people were not able to vote and were segregated on reservations. Married white women couldn't own property or vote, and blacks could not vote either. Things changed for many black people when the Civil War ended slavery in America. After the war, black men in Wisconsin cast their first vote in 1866, 2 years before national lawmakers changed the United States Constitution to give all black men the vote. Women asked to get that right too, but they were refused. Wisconsin's territorial lawmakers established a system of state government that is still in place today. We have found evidence that the system allows people to work for changes they think will make Wisconsin a better state. Our early lawmakers also established a system of government that encouraged people to help make laws for their own communities. Several times each year, citizens travel to their local town hall to discuss important issues, such as building schools, repairing roads and bridges, and hiring town employees. They debated advantages and disadvantages of new ideas before voting. Women may have attended the town meetings, but women still couldn't vote in state elections. It took women a long time to make changes, and they made progress in small steps. I wanted to learn more, so I asked Dr. Joyce Fillet, who studies women's history, to meet me here at the library. Dr. Fillet, why did some people want to keep women from voting?
Angie, at that time, people believed that women and men were so different that they should have separate roles in society. So most men believed that they were protecting women by making it possible for them to stay at home and out of the conflict of politics. And you may be surprised to learn that many women agreed with them.
But many poor women couldn't afford to stay at home, At that time, some of them worked outside of the home in difficult and even dangerous jobs. Women were excluded from most of the better-paying jobs. Have you ever seen political cartoons in newspapers? Dr. Fillet showed me some old drawings that show the trouble people thought would occur if women were given equal opportunities. She also showed me how to use a microfilm reader to look at copies of old newspapers. I wanted to hunt for stories about the women who worked for change. In 1887, groups of women from several Wisconsin towns went to the polls and demanded full voting rights. Most were turned away, but it made the newspaper. The women were trying to draw attention to the discrimination against them. A number of women, called suffragists, worked hard to gain the right to vote. They were trying to change the way many people thought about the roles men and women had. In 1912, when this handbill was created, the idea of giving Wisconsin women political rights was put to a vote. It did not pass. But when the United States changed the national constitution in 1919 to give women suffrage, Wisconsin was the first state to approve the new law. The suffragists didn't succeed right away, but they did succeed. Since 1919, women have worked to gain equal access to education and jobs. For a long time, only white women benefited. Some American Indians did not become United States citizens until a national law called the Indian Citizenship Act was passed in 1924. Although black men began voting soon after the Civil War, black people had to keep working for equal opportunities in employment and education. Wisconsin people have found many ways to change situations they thought were unfair. Workers have gone on strike, which means they stop working to protest poor conditions. Black people have organized marches to help educate others about discrimination. Wisconsin's American Indians have held public rallies to draw attention to their treaty concerns. Environmentalists have organized cleanup projects all over the state. They even created Earth Day. We've investigated a lot of changes today. We found that the leaders who created our state made decisions that didn't give everyone equal rights. A few people believed they were best able to make decisions for everyone. Whole groups of people were left out. So some people worked to change these ideas and make Wisconsin a better place for everyone. Our state is always changing. Have you ever seen a problem you would like to change? What could you do to make Wisconsin a better place?
I will work to save the Great Lakes and forests.
I will help keep my cultural celebrations.
I will help other students to get better grades in school.
I will remember to include everyone.
I would like everyone to be aware of pollution.
I like to tell people about sporting events.
I would like to tell people about historical places to visit.
I would like communities to work together.
Those are great ideas. As for me, I'm about to make my vote count. See you next time.